What you don't know about pelvic pain could hurt you. Welcome, everybody. It's Jason Barlow, RMT, and I'm here today as your therapist and as your coach to help you transform any stress, tension, and pain that you may be experiencing into health, happiness, and vitality instead. So every Tuesday, I want to share with you one of my latest YouTube videos that I pieced together for you. I rotate between 4 elements of movement. That is mobility, massage, stretching, and corrective exercise. Today, we're centering around a corrective exercise that can be very impactful, especially if you are struggling with any form of pelvic or even low back pain. Before I get into the nitty-gritty of that, let me share a little story for you. When I graduated from university, I'd done my sports science degree. In the UK, it's known as that. Here in Canada, it's more like a kinesiology equivalent. And I remember getting the opportunity to go work with a professional soccer team, professional football team in the UK. You may have heard of it, Manchester City Football Club. Now, that wasn't the club that I was the biggest fan of at the time. I'm a big Man United fan, Manchester United. So I got to work with the opposing team, if you will, for my city, Manchester. But I got the opportunity to work with these young men and help condition them. Now, the interesting thing was they walked in the gym and I was here fresh from university, really inspired, wanting to help them change their bodies and get fit and get stronger for the purpose of improving their performance. So I was totally focused. And they came in and they were a bunch of, they appeared to be a young bunch of teenagers, the way that they were behaving. They found some paper, they rolled it up and they were kicking it around the gym. And I was trying to teach them some stuff. And it was very poor attention. They didn't want to be in the gym. All they wanted to do was play football, right? That was their love. That was their passion. They didn't see the connection between being in a gym and how that will influence their performance. And if you look at a lot of professional soccer players in the UK, and it's shifting now, but I'm talking 20 years ago, it wasn't your typical athletic profile of a body for an athlete that you would see. I mean, at the time, I won't go into specifics, but it was starting to transition in the United States and South America and other parts of the world that those athletes as soccer players appreciated the conditioning that they could take from a gym environment and apply that to their soccer performance and in how they looked. I mean, I think Cristiano Ronaldo is probably the greatest example that you ladies may have heard of before and seen some pictures with him being half naked, that he's got a great looking body. And he has, because he's put the due diligence in and put the work ethic in outside of playing soccer. And there's a huge translation between having a highly conditioned body and how that relates to performance. Where I'm going with this is that with Manchester United soccer team, they went through quite a season or a few seasons even of hamstring strains. And so they brought in a specialist who was able to evaluate their bodies. And typically at that time, the translation was hamstring strain. We need to stretch it. Stretch your hamstrings, stretch your hamstrings, stretch your hamstrings. That was the advice. That's what the athletes were told to do. So they were doing that. They were following the advice. But the incident rate actually went up, not down. The reason being, once they brought a kinesiologist in and they actually evaluated these athletes, they realized how prevalent, how dominant they are in striking the ball, that they recruit all of the anterior muscles, the front muscles of your hip and your thigh, so much so that they were shortening and tightening in relation to the hamstring, which is on the back of your leg. So what was actually happening is the pelvis was having to be tipped forward because the muscles on the front were pulling it that way. It's just like a tug of war. The quads and hip flexors were winning that tug of war, pulling the pelvis forward. Then on the opposite side to the quad and hip flexors are the hamstrings. And the hamstrings then were having to stretch, but also maintain tension to try to counter the pull from the muscles on the front. You following me? So it's a tug of war that was going on. So it sounded like good advice to stretch the hamstrings because they were appearing tight. They weren't tight. They were taut, T-A-U-T. And as a result, the muscles on the front of the thigh actually needed to be stretched and lengthened, and the muscles on the back of the thigh needed to be shortened and tightened. So when they started to shift their emphasis from stretching the hamstrings to strengthening the hamstrings, then the incidence rate of hamstring strains went down dramatically. So what I'm trying to share here is there's a level of science to understanding the anatomy of the body, the balance of these muscles. And that's what I'm sharing with you each week and every day, is little tidbits of information here and there to understand your body and know where your pelvic pain may be coming from, your neck pain may be coming from. And sometimes it's coming from not what you think. and I just like to explain kind of the influence of these chains of muscles and how they tie together, and what you therefore need to do to stretch the right muscles and strengthen also the correct muscles. Because very often we try to stretch all the muscles, and that doesn't necessarily work for us. Why? Because not all the muscles need to be stretched. That's the important message that I'm sharing with you here today. So the pelvis is at the base of your spine. It's almost like a basin or a bowl at the base of your spine. So within it are the contents of your abdomen. So, your lower digestive system, including the appendix, if you still have one, your bladder, your bowels, the small intestine kind of comes into that region. And so those organs are sitting in the base of that reservoir. There's lots of muscles in that region too. And ultimately, there's two spheres, two parts to your pelvis that are fused together. And the fusion parts are levels of tendon and mainly ligaments and muscles that are attachments to keep the pelvis maintained where it is. And then the spine goes up from it, and the legs start from it and travel down, obviously. So the pelvis is very much the center point of our body. That's the essence of what I'm trying to share with you here. So when you get pelvic pain, man, it forces you to limit your walking potentially, limit your bending, limit anything you're lifting overhead. It's pretty dramatic, the influence that pelvic pain can have. So take on board what I'm sharing with you today. In the description below, there's a YouTube link which is going to teach you the very exercise that I'm getting to today. It is known as the bridge. It is the reason why I put it in one of my top 3 exercises that I recommend in this great book. Happens to be mine. The 15-step playbook for pain relief. I've given you the top 3 stretches and the top 3 exercises that I recommend, that are the most prevalent, that I'm sharing with patients on a regular basis, based upon these scientific methods of understanding which muscles are short, tight, which muscles are long and weak. Stretch the short, tight, strengthen the long, weak. So the bridge that I'm sharing with you today is one of my top 3 exercises that's going to help strengthen the hamstring muscles. Now, in the article that I'm going to share with you this week too, if you follow me on my blog, on my website, which is jasonbarlowrmt.com, just click on blog, I'll be sharing with you this week the understanding more so about the position of the pelvis. So if you want to read more about that, go read my blog. But what I want you to understand today is that this exercise is particularly useful if you're sitting a lot. Now, if you're sitting a lot, or you are an athlete that is very dominant in moving or running forward, or you're a soccer player, these muscles along the front of the hip are usually very shortened and tightened. That's why last week I was sharing with you how to stretch the hip flexors. Runners, this is applicable for you too. Stretching of the hip flexors is one part of the equation. The other part of the equation is then to strengthen the posterior muscles that oppose that area, and that is the bridge. So the bridge exercise, I'm not going to spend time right now teaching you it. I'll talk you through it, but you can go click on the link in my description below, and you can follow a YouTube video where I'm teaching you how to do the exercise, and I lay out how many repetitions to do, how long to hold it for. The essence of it is you would lay flat on the ground, wherever that works for you. Your arms go out wide, and then you bring your knees up. So your feet are flat on the floor, your knees are bent, and your back and your head are resting on the ground. Then the goal is to try and lift the hips up toward the ceiling. And as you're doing that, you're actually engaging all the posterior chain muscles, which includes your hamstrings, your glutes, and your lower back erector muscles in your spine. Now, as you're doing this and you're extending your spine, you're engaging those hamstrings, and you're teaching them to hold the posture they're designed to do, which is to extend and lengthen your spine and help it extend into the hip as well. So these muscles are the ones that are going to help strengthen and balance your body as far as your pelvis and spine is concerned, and especially to overcome the pull of the anterior muscles, those hip flexors that we looked at stretching last week. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget, go check out the description below, because in there is the YouTube link. You're probably going to have to copy and paste it, put it into a browser, and follow that video along and try today's exercise. And after you've done that, I want to know how it felt, what experiences you had. If there's any questions or concerns you have, I want to hear from you. I like hearing from people. I want to know there's people out there. I want to know that there's some things that you're benefiting from when I'm sharing this information. Also, last opportunity in the next few weeks to get my free digital book, the 15-step playbook for pain relief. My kids will enjoy that part of the video. Lots of voice cracking going on in our house right now as we get into teenagehood. And it's interesting, as I've had some experiences taking some laughter out of enjoying these voice cracks, then I've actually had more voice cracks myself as a 43-year-old man. I don't know what the deal is with that, other than maybe a bit of karma. Anyway, go get my free digital book whilst you can. The next few weeks, it's not going to be free anymore. You can get a free digital chapter. That's all be available. If you want to get the book, though, you can still get it either from Amazon or join me in one of my courses that I'm going to be launching here right away, and you'll get the book as part of that program. It's going to be a very inexpensive program, and I'm looking forward to launching it. Anyway, I'm going to shut up at this point, and remember, your muscle health is my #1 priority. That's why I'm here to help you. Let me know if you have any questions. Take care. Have a great rest of your day.